In this video, I'm going to talk about the card Hades, King of Olympus, and talk about building a deck specifically around this card. It's an expensive card to play. It costs 8 ink to play, it's non-flourish, and so you can't use it in your inkwell. Because of how expensive it is, you're going to want to make sure you're fully utilizing it in your deck, otherwise it's really not worth having in your deck at all. To build a deck strategy with this card in it, I'm going to start with this card, and then walk back my strategy from there. This character shines with its ability Sinister Plot, where this character gets +1 lore for each other villain character that we have in play. So that's the starting point for our strategy, to get as many villain cards in our deck as we can have. I looked at the Amber ink and pulled out all the villains I can find that we know about so far, and there's only 2 unfortunately. Of course there's Hades, King of Olympus, and there's also Hades, Lord of the Underworld. It's great that these villains can work together, where you can shift Hades, Lord of Olympus onto Hades, Lord of the Underworld, but having only 2 villains in our deck so far is not off to a good start for our strategy. So I looked at all the other inks and I counted up all the villains in each one of them, and I picked the one that has the most villains that we know about so far. It turned out to be the Amethyst ink. There are currently 5 known villains in Amethyst. There's Jafar, Maleficent, Dr. Facilier, Yzma, and Maleficent again. Now that we have a deck that has the maximum number of villains that we know about, the next thing to do is to take a step back and figure out what our early game strategy is going to be. All of these cards, except for the low cost Maleficent, quest for only 1 lore. We run the risk of our opponent outpacing us in lore gain in the early game. But then looking closer at these 2 cards, we've got Jafar and Dr. Facilier. They're both challenger cards, which means we get more willpower for the amount of ink that they cost. And also to get the biggest benefit for these cards, we're going to want to challenge a lot. And so that will be the early game strategy, is to challenge and banish the opposing player's characters as much as possible and really control the board. While we're holding control of the board, we're going to want to make sure we're drawing enough cards to actually find Hades, King of Olympus by the time we actually have enough ink in our inkwell. This other villain card that we have in our deck should help, Maleficent Sorceress, which has Cast My Spell. When you play this card, you may draw a card. Don't be afraid to also challenge with this card. You might think that you want to keep it around for Hades, King of Olympus, but at the same time, you have this other card, Hades, Lord of the Underworld, that has the ability that allows you to get the card back. The ability Well of Souls lets you return a character card from your discard to your hand. So it's not a totally horrible idea to play Maleficent, draw your card, challenge an opposing character, hopefully banishing them in the process. She might get banished as well, which isn't a big deal because you're going to bring Hades in to then bring Maleficent back into your hand, play her again, and then draw another card. These 2 can be a really great and really fun combo to have together. Looking at the next villain card in our deck, we have Yzma, which is an okay card to have, not great, but it has the ability to allow you to look at the top card of your deck and put it either in the top or bottom, helping you find the cards that you want more quickly. And then last we have Maleficent Biding Her Time, which is a low cost card and will allow us to bank some lore in the early game. The next stage for this deck is to add some item and action cards that allow us to get to Hades faster if we don't already have them in our hand. I decided to add the item Lantern, which has the ability Birthday Lights, which you exert to pay 1 less ink for the next character you play this turn. Having 1 or 2 lanterns out is going to help you get Hades, King of Olympus out in an earlier turn of play, by either playing him directly or by shifting him onto your other Hades. The next card I'm going to add is an action song card, Friends on the Other Side. I believe every Amethyst deck is going to have this card. It allows you to draw 2 cards, and it's just a fantastic card to have almost in any deck. So the next card I decided to add was Dinglehopper, which I know might be a little bit controversial, but we're doing so much challenging with this deck that I thought this might actually just increase the survivability of all of our challengers, so I added that. It's also a low-cost flourish card, so it gives you some options whether you just have a little bit more ink to spend, or if you want to put it into your inkwell. This next card I'm a little bit less sure about. I put Magic Mirror as an item card into my deck, and I want to use this as a release valve in case I was really running out of cards and I needed to draw more. And I think the big downside here is that it costs so much to exert, and also it doesn't actually have a flourish, so you can't use it in your inkwell. But I don't know, let me know in the comments if you think there's another card I should use instead of this one. The next action song card I put in my deck was Be Our Guest, which is kind of similar to Yzma in the sense that you can find cards you're looking for, but this one lets you look through 4 cards and then you pick a character out of it. So you're going to be able to find the characters that you want much more quickly. And then the last action or item card I added to the deck was an action song card, Part of Your World, which has an ability very similar to Hades, Lord of the Underworld, that you get to bring a character from your discard pile back into your hand. And I think this is a very powerful ability, very good ability to have for this specific deck. The reason for that is because you're going to be doing a lot of challenging, and you're going to see some of your challengers get banished, and you're going to want to bring them back as quickly as possible. I wasn't very excited about any of the other action or item cards that are available, so I decided to go back and look at other character cards to finish off this deck. The first character I decided to pick was Elsa Snow Queen. I picked her for her ability Freeze, and you exert this character to then exert a chosen opposing character. The reason this is really good is because you're trying to control the board, and so if that player puts out a card that's readied but hasn't actually dried yet, I believe that this card you can exert it and then banish it before it's even gotten a chance to collect any lore. And then last I added support card Hey Hey, which is a low-cost early game card. Hei's support ability is going to be really good for your challengers in case you just need a little bit more strength to banish the characters that you're challenging. So here it is. Here's the deck that I built, centered around Hades, King of Olympus. There are 15 cards total, so of course you need to add 4 of each card to get your 60 card deck. I think one of the biggest downsides of this deck would be if you were playing against a Ruby deck that has a lot of evasive, you don't really have anything you can do to work around that. When more cards come out, there's a couple cards that I'd be looking to replace right away. I think first off, it's probably Dinglehopper. I'd definitely swap out Magic Mirror once we have better item and action cards, and I'd likely also swap out Hei and Elsa once there's other villains to pick from. Now looking at this deck overall, it's not necessarily the most powerful deck that you can build at this moment in time, but I do want to say I think it's a really fun deck to play, so I'd encourage you to try it out. But honestly, once we find out about more cards in the game, this deck will become less and less interesting over time. That said, I think the strategy where you start with Hades, King of Olympus and then build a deck around him will be a thing we continue to see in future decks. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and with that, I hope to see you next time. Bye.